Today, I'm going to be ranking every secret style in Volleyball Legends, as well as giving a good tip for each of them, coming from someone who has reached pro every single season since the game came out. And at the end, I'll also rank the abilities as a little extra thing for you guys. But no, this is just my opinion. If you disagree, feel free to comment your ranking, because I'm always interested to hear others as well to help better inform my own opinion in the future. At 9, we have Kimro. He is no doubt the worst secret style in Volleyball Legends. He has 4 max stats, but one of them is actually just bad one max, which is bump, and the other is attached to his dive, which just isn't a great mechanic in this game, leaving him with effectively set and speed being his max stats, which does at least make him an alright setter and solid defender, but when stacked up against almost all the other secrets, I really don't see a reason to pick him over anyone else. But I do want to clarify, I do think he's still better than all the godlies. And for a tip for him, we all know about using his dive to make saves and whatnot, but you can also sort of use it offensively too with snake jumps and with using it to zip to the other side of the court for a spike if you have communication with the setter that's doing it. Coming in at 8, we have Timeskip Okazu, and he is for sure a lock for the second worst. He at the end of the day is gimmicky in that he has one pretty strong trick, but if you know how to counter his serves, or if he just goes on a long period without serving, which happens a ton in most modes outside of 2s, then he is really just a regular setter or just regular like kind of well-rounder. But a pretty solid tip to know with him, and I won't cover his serve on this tip because we all already know about his serve, but instead is spike, because it's kind of perfect for high ball S tilts if the enemy team plays too close or they're just not paying too close attention to you. You can very easily sneak in a ton of points that hit the back line because your spike power is at that perfect point where you can S tilt with it when the ball is pretty high and it lands like line or close to it. And I want to clarify before I go forward on that context that the rest of these styles I think are extremely balanced, with all of them having solid upside and downside to them. And I think really only the previous 2 styles are actually bad styles by the measure of other secrets. So if you see me place a secret style at 6 and another at 2, it's likely I don't think they're actually all that far apart from each other. And now with all that yap out of the way, at 7 I have Mikag. Sort of falls in the same boat as Kimro a bit in that he is a defender, but I think Mikag is a significantly scarier defender than Kimro due to his blocks that if you get them lined up, it's just going straight to the 4. He feels much like Bokuto with a block ability in my opinion. A very strong style, and all I really dislike about him is that his bar is charged with receiving and not scoring and hitting, and I think this style is really good at the lower ranks where people really don't have the know-abouts to not hit straight into a block. But I do think as you go up in the ranks, I do think Mikag is going to see a bit of a fall off there. And one of the sneakiest and best tips I can give with him is tipping the ball. If both defenders are playing against the net defending you and you S-tilt and block with your ability active, you can actually kind of perfectly tip the ball over them to the back of the court. And you can also just do this with a W tilt to quickly tip it down at the front of the court. Kind of just a cool little trick to know with him if you want to use his block more offensively as well. At 6, I had the most recent setter released, Taichou. He's a very strong setter with comparable stats to most setters in the secret rarity and an ability attached to his set. The worst part about him is that his sets take some adjusting to, since they work differently than any other setter, but when both you and the spiker have adjusted, are insanely strong sets. Now I would say he's probably not that good with randoms, because like with TSK he just has so much bailout, like you can just completely miss your spiker, or the spiker can completely miss and still get it. With this character that's not really a possibility. I do think you need to be synced up a little more, but he still has an insane ceiling on his sets. And for a quick tip or trick with him is actually setting forward on set blocks back to the enemy side of the court. This doesn't seem like it would work, but it absolutely can. Now usually you need to go at least at a bit of an angle or else it'll go out, but you can also go straight forward with it as well if you just kill a touch of the power, and honestly you can get some insanely silly like points off of this. At 5 I have Kazana. He's honestly very similar to TSH, but with a worse ability, and that's exactly what has pushed him a bit farther down for me, is that when compared to TSH, he is just the off-brand version in my opinion. Still really good and balanced style, but he isn't him. And in my opinion, the best really thing I can tell you about this character is he can flick really well. What I like to do is charge up my ability and then flick to the cut, or vice versa, like stare at the cut and then flick to like the line or something. And this usually works really well. On top of just being able to glide really well as well, he can also delay his spikes for even longer, since he can jump higher than anyone else and then kind of fall with it for an insane delay. But I think he also does take a little bit of coordination with the setter and isn't too good with randoms. At 4 I have the twins, and this style is very gimmicky, and I think he suffers a bit of a drop off if the player using him doesn't have a deep bag of serves, or if the enemy team already knows the serves. But against the vast majority of players, this style is still easily one of the hardest, if not the hardest, to play against, mostly due to his serve. But that's not all he has going for him. He has the best stats in the game on paper, with the only drawback being only half that at any given time. But but with good consistent swapping and a good serve, he can absolutely be a nightmare. The best advice I can give for the Miya twins outside of just having a bunch of different serve lineups is swapping up the depth that you're hitting at with the serves. I've noticed that constantly playing with it curving near the net and then curving it far back can cause people to get really confused on where they need to play. Like one play curve it close to the net and then the next send it far back, and then doing this can constantly keep them guessing on where it's going to land. Like sometimes I'll curve it so it'll land right near the net, and then I'll be like, all right, I already know he's going to come up closer, so then the next one I just send it back and now he has no idea where to stand. At 3, I have the best wing spiker in the game. He is good at every type of shot, like delays, cuts, deep crosses, really all of it, but he does have one shot that I think he really shines in like a lot of others just literally can't, and that is his cut. He can cut the ball tighter than literally anyone else can, and in a poll I ran on YouTube, you all voted for the cut shot being the strongest, so he's effectively best at the best type of hit. And to do this type of hit, simply shift lock looking where you want to hit, like around here, and then tilt towards the net. This will cause the ball to sort of curve more towards the net after it's hit due to Sanu's special tilt mechanic. And then you can also add in a little partial where you look to the side after it. You can add in a bunch onto this type of hit to make it even stronger and even harder to guard. There's a reason in league play like real comp play, Timeskip Okazu sees the most time amongst teams. This is because his sets remain the most versatile sets in the game in the sense that you can just do more and also different types of hits with his sets on top of making it so the spikers can still hit it after they've missed, effectively making it so you can't really mistime his sets / spikes, which then also makes him good at the lower levels where people might miss a lot. But I mean, even if they do, they can just drop back down and bump it over, maybe in some cases still get up and try to spike it again. The only thing he does really well is his setting, but that's what makes him so dominant. He doesn't pretend to be an all-rounder, he just sets and does that one thing really well. And the clear #1 style in the game is easily TSH. He's a very fast spiker with stats mirroring Kazana, but with a much better ability than Kazana, which is partly what in this ranking at least pushed Kazana a bit down for me. His ability is attached to a spike, which when you get a running start increases your spike power significantly, and was just actually recently re-released on high demand from the community to have him back. And the best piece of advice I can give for him is pretty much just routes, being able to constantly keep his charge up when you're on offense. All you really need to do that is generally be running in the same direction, not a perfectly straight line. You can move a bit in different directions and do motions like this to keep the bar filled for his charge spike. The times when the bar completely goes away though is when you pivot hard, so just get pretty good at making your movements on offense not jagged if you want to keep your ability bar charged. And since a new ability just released, I also quickly rank abilities too, and at a tie for 1 I have Shield Break and Magnetic Pull. Both have their uses. If I had to place one, I might go with Shield Breaker being like a hair better, but I think they're both really solid, with Shield Break being easier to use but lower ceiling, and Magnetic Pull being harder to use but also a higher ceiling. And at 3 or 2 or however you'd consider this, I have Redirection Jump. This one is honestly so good, and if you don't have a secret ability, this one is absolutely the move, and in some cases might be the move even over the other two. It's really solid, and I'm glad I've been saying it's better than Curve Shift for the longest time, because I was on the Glaze train for this eons ago. And I know you guys are probably curious about the newest ability, Fourth Touch, but to be honest, I don't even know if it's past Boom Jump currently. You can stack it to make it pretty good and hard to read, but then you are dumping multiple abilities for 1 point. This ability, in my opinion, just isn't worth having until it gets buffed or something happens to it. I think a cool way to tweak this ability would be to make it so the longer you hold onto the ability, the more charges or maybe even touches your team can get with it when you do use it. So like, say I hold it for like 10 points, or like I get it and I just keep holding it, then I'll be able to use it in like succession, like multiple times, or like the longer I hold it, that when I do use it, I'll be able to hit it instead maybe like 2 or 3 extra times on that play. It's just something to, you know, give it more of a use or a reason to pick it.